melodies using this. So yeah, anyways, there's that.
We're back with GFI System Podcast, and we have a special guest. We are honored to have Tycho, aka Scott Hansen, in this episode today. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All the way from San Francisco.
Yay.
And we're so excited. We have many topics to cover today. But first of all, congratulations for the Grammy nominations for Best Dance Electronic Album, Weather.
Thank you.
And
appreciate it.
We're a big fan of that. And before we get deep into pedals and the music, just wondering, what does Tycho stand for? Any story about where you get the name Tycho?
Yeah. I picked it probably about 20 years ago, or more than 20 years ago now. I was just reading a lot about astronomy and Tycho. It's actually pronounced Tycho, is how the guy pronounced it, but I just pronounced it Tycho because I'm American. But Tycho Brahe was the astronomer, so it's that. But I mean, beyond that, it's kind of arbitrary. I just thought it sounded cool.
How do you define your genre? Because it's a lot of crossover. There's a electronic, there's a dance, and there's the beats. And how do you define a genre?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many genres these days, and like such super specific words. I mean, I think the word ambient is useful, not because I think my music is ambient music, but just because I think the way that I think about textures and timbres is kind of comes from an ambient perspective. But I think, at its core, there's a lot of rock elements. I try to bring guitar and rock elements into it and do the drums and everything as well. So I think it's like, kind of like ambient electronic rock, I guess, something like that.
And are you from NorCal originally in San Francisco?
I'm from a place 90 miles from here called Sacramento. I don't know if it's a smaller city, but it's of course you would know.
Okay.
But it's a very different place culturally, but there was a really cool like kind of music scene there when I was growing up. So like in my 20s, I started making music and working with music technology. So that all happened there. And then I moved here when I was I moved here when I was 18 for a while, but then I moved back, and then I moved here again when I was 30. So back and forth.
I was just wondering if San Francisco have affected as in your production or songwriting in general?
Yeah, I mean, I have to imagine it did. I think, if you listen to Past This Prologue, I definitely made that record all in Sacramento. So but that was also me learning how to make music. So it's hard to compare the two. But then Dive, I put it out in 2011, but I've been working on it since I started writing it in Sacramento. But a lot of what happened, most of the songs got finished or written once I was here in San Francisco. So I don't know. I mean, people always say they hear the ocean and they hear that coastal vibe in the music.
I hear the mountains.
Yeah, well, so I mean, that's the thing. Sacramento, or at least where I grew up outside of Sacramento, is actually kind of in the foothills at the foot of the mountains. So we spent a lot of time in the mountains, and that's actually the kind of physical, natural space that speaks mostly to me, most powerful. It's the most powerful thing to me. But like, once I moved out here and was near the ocean, that was definitely became like a big influence too.
And you are also the visual artist for your music. And it's known as a ISO 50.
Yeah.
So can you tell us more about that? And do you actually design for all of the live show background visuals?
Yeah. So I actually I was a visual artist, or like I say visual artist. I just drew a lot as a kid, and like but it wasn't until I was about like 20 or 19, somewhere around there, I got a computer that could run Photoshop. And once I like connected with that, I realized like, oh, this is actually my thing. Like with drawing, I just felt like it was too painstaking, and I didn't have undo, and I didn't have perfect lines. Like I didn't know what graphic design was. So like when I found Photoshop and I figured out what graphic design was, I was like, oh, this is my thing. So I've always been doing that. But at the beginning, like before I even made music, I would just make fake record covers and fake tape covers, like for, bands that didn't exist, or like redo the album cover for a band that I liked. So like when I first started making music, even when I wasn't putting it out, I started like printing out my own fake covers and stuff. Like I was just fascinated with like branding and packaging design. So that was always something that I was interested in. But then as far as the live visuals, I do them all, like do all the effects and production, but a lot of the footage is shot by a friend of mine named Charles Bergquist. So he shoots he'll shoot the base footage, the actual video, and then I'll take it and, do all these effects to it and stuff.
And talking about the music, I mean, we have a large, diverse audience for our podcast. We got the guitar players, we got the songwriters, and we got those who just want to start music. And I was just wondering, from the songwriter point of view, how did you get started getting ideas out? And I see from your YouTubes and Instagram that you started with the oscillators. Is that how you get started normally to get ideas off, or how does it work normally?
Just coming up with songs. Yeah. I mean, like, interestingly, like these days, it's mostly guitar, which is my secondary instrument. I learned to play on keyboards. I mean, I actually learned to play on samplers, like on pads, but then I really got into keyboard early, and then got into guitar pretty late. But, I found that with keyboards, I get into these kind of ruts where I'm just keep playing the same thing because I'm so used to it and I know it well. Whereas guitar, I don't really know what I'm doing. So I'm always finding my way around. So I find myself being more experimental or making more mistakes with guitar, which can sometimes lead, to more interesting results. So typically, yeah, I'll just start with a guitar, running through some pedals, and just start playing with effects and trying to figure out a way to kind of play through the effects and make something interesting happen. And I'll just usually lay down like a melody. I used to start with drums a lot more, with a drum beat and play over it. But for whatever reason, not really, intentionally, I just kind of stopped doing that. And for the last maybe 10 years, I always start mostly just with a melody. Then I'll lay down the bass. Then I'll like start playing a drum machine, and then I'll put some breaks or something like that.
Do you have a specific preparations for live shows? How you get your pedals together? How you get your signal chain for live shows with the guitars?
Yeah, that's changed a lot over the years. I didn't really even get into pedals until probably 2015, right before Epoch. And even then, I only had like two pedals. I had a Big Sky and a Timeline, and that was like, it just opened up this whole new world to me, because like I always thought guitar pedals were like this thing for guitars, but I had like rack mounted reverbs and rack mounted delays, and I slowly started realizing like, oh, like all the interesting stuff that's happening in that world of DSP and everything is actually happening in pedal formats, and they take line levels. So what, why am I not using these things? And, I was also getting into guitar. So that was all part of that. So, before that, the live show, it wasn't difficult to transfer because we were doing, Zach plays a lot of the guitar parts as well. The guitars from the band. So he would use like a single, Boss, the blue one, the delay, they're like classic delay, and that's it. He's like really, he's kind of a purist guitar guy. And so that was easy to translate that. But for all my stuff, I was always just using Amplitube and like plugins. So I would just literally copy. Yeah, every record up until Epoch was all Amplitube. I think there's only 2 songs that were a real amp, which was Hours, and I want to say there's one other song, maybe Dive, but I feel like it's some other song. Oh no, Awake, the lead from. Not the lead, but the rhythm part from Awake was a real amp. But mostly, nice. I always used Amplitude because I don't know I'm not good at miking amps. So like back then I was like, well, you just plug it in, it sounds good. So I'm not going to try to learn all this other stuff. But then slowly I've learned to mic amps. So it wasn't hard back then, but then it became more difficult as I started using more complex systems. So for the show now, we use, Zach uses a real amp mic'd with like, he's built a pedal board for himself that kind of approximates the stuff that we did on the album, but not really exactly the same. And then I use a Kemper with just like a little pedal board with the Specular Tempus is kind of my main outboard pedal, and a Strymon Deco. But in the studio lately, I've been using, I have a Duende, a Bogner Duende and an old Fender Deluxe, and I run those through an aux, the UA aux. So I think that'll be the future for the live shows. We'll be using real amps with the aux. Josh
have many questions about the pedals.
That's nice.
Sure.
Oh yeah. I tried to open them up so you can kind of see them. I don't know if you can see both racks, but I can pull the camera over if you have any specific stuff you want to see.
Yeah, for sure. And back with your story, Awake is the song like you got me at the first time.
Oh, cool,
and
cool.
Because I've been following you like maybe since 2014 or 2015. I like your stuff with the synthesizer and the electronic drums. Like, is that a TR-808?
No, I mean, I've used TR-808 sounds, but they're mostly samples. Like, I've never owned a TR-808.
I see. Yeah. Since like I'm joining the GFI that I thought my friend, okay, I want to connect with this guy Scott Hansen. This is awesome. It's like different than any other musicians, because you're combining the guitars and the synthesizer and the electric drum. It's kind of different thing for me.
Oh, cool. Thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And about the Specular Tempus, what's your favorite algorithm with the Specular Tempus? I remember because like when the first time I contacted you, you talked with me like you want to try the Capzius, but okay, I sending you the Specular Tempus as well, and
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. No. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So like the Capzius, is that how you pronounce it? Capzius or Capzius?
Same, Capzius.
Okay, cool. Capzius. So I love that. I actually have that on my live rig. I especially love that it's a DI as well. It's really helpful to have those balanced out. Yeah. So I use that in the live show all the time. The Specular Tempus, that surprised me because like it wasn't on my radar just because like I wasn't like back then I wasn't so deep into pedals that I like knew everything coming out. But the way I use the Specular Tempus is, this is my stereo rig right here. So this is like, just all my big stereo algorithmic reverbs and delays. And this one, I typically end up using the harmonious, because I really like that pitch shifted delay, and I really like how it sounds in stereo. So I typically use it in here. And then the plate, I think it's called like gold plate or something like that.
Yeah, it's 70s plate, I think.
70s plate, right? And it has like the warmth parameter. So that's what I end up using on this board. And then this is the mono board for before the amp. So this is all post amp. I'll run the outputs of the aux to this on I'll split it. And so I'll have like a parallel wet. And then all my mono stuff that's before the amp, I'll use. And you guys, I just got the special edition. This thing's amazing. So that was the thing, is I was always having to switch back and forth because I only had one Specular Tempus, because I really, really like the Spadium algorithm before the amp in mono, because I really think that collapses well to mono. And for me, for whatever reason, I know it's not like supposed to be a spring reverb, or obviously, but for me, it takes the place of a spring reverb before an amp really well. Because like I almost always use the spring reverb on the Fender Deluxe, but I found myself kind of being limited by it because there's not much you can do. You can just turn it up essentially. So I'll just turn that off and just use the Specular Tempus. And I just feel like it's a much more interesting, flexible sound to have before the amp in mono.
Wow, that's nice. Yeah, I saw you like you did like the research about the spring reverb from the pedal, from the camper, from the amplifier itself. Like glad that you found at the Spatium algorithm from Specular Tempus.
Yeah, I love it. I don't know what it is. It has. I like it in stereo. I really like how it sounds. I think it's big and pretty, but there's something really dark and like mysterious about it before the amp. Like in mono, in that amp space, it just like it opens up in a different way that I really appreciate.
Yeah,
So thanks for making
Thank you.
we put some MSG on it.
Umami.
The thing's amazing. Yeah, the only thing I would want, I hope someday you guys make a big box version with all the parameters presented. I use SpecLab, which is great, but for the live show, sometimes I find myself wanting, so I need to just map them all to MIDI and have a breakout box, but still sometimes it's nice to just have them all in there.
I'll write it down. Your request.
No, listen, yeah. I'm sure there's not many people who need that, but yeah, that's what's nice about the MIDI is you can just control it externally. And I got this triple switch actually helps a lot live to be able to switch through the presets much easier.
I was wondering if it's too hard for you to demo some stuff in there right now.
This one, I actually, because you guys, I just got this, so I actually had to tear apart my mono rig. But this is working, so I can pull this up.
Oh,
let's see.
Oh my god!
So this is I'll try to show you the amp setup. I don't know. Can you see that?
Yeah, man.
So that's a Bogner Duende that I mounted that. It was taking up so much space, and I never used the cab in here. If I ever do use the cab, I use this, or I use the I got the aux down there. So everything basically goes through here, and then it gets molted out of the back of the aux, and then it comes into this, which is essentially can you see that whole board? Yeah. There we go.
It's pretty clear.
So basically the way this board works is this is just a little patch bay to, I can skip like half of the board if I want, but the signal comes in, it hits the Flint just because I like to have my tremolo up front, and then it hits the Deco, and then the Volante, the Big Sky, and then this analog heat I have after that, because like sometimes I like to really grunge up the reverb sound, and give it a lot of distortion, and plus I can do high pass filtering on it. So the only thing is I'm gonna have to take my headset off so you guys so you can hear the computer speakers.
It's all good, dude.
This is pretty much what both Zach and I use for everything, a Epiphone Les Paul. These are the Korean-made ones from the 90s. Zach,
nice.
He found them and just like got way into them. And this specific range of years from Korea, for whatever reason, just sounds like, I don't know, they're just really aggressive in this really interesting way that we both appreciate. So let me pull up. Sorry. I'm running Reaper.
It's like your
do input monitoring on everything.
Thanks for doing this, man. It's like virtual studio tour of Tycho, right?
Tycho. In here is Tycho. In California, it's Tycho.
So yeah, you can basically get some pretty big washy textures. I'll play you that's just like a nice clean. The Duende is so good at like, and the way I figured out that I liked the Duende was actually through Britt had a Duende profile on the Kemper. So I was like, well, if I like the profile on the Kemper, I'll probably like the real thing even more. And
that's good theory.
All right. Okay, so that's dry. And then there's so you can high pass that reverb. So the really cool thing is when you get harmonious in here. So it's like, and if you run synths through that and like have like a pad and you turn on harmonious, it's insane. Like, cause you know, you're doing this really cool doubling of the synth. It just, I love like, that call and response, you know? I've built so many melodies using this. So yeah, anyways, there's a quick demo of it.
That's awesome, dude.
But yeah, it's endless fun. Sometimes, I mean, sometimes I'm not even, I don't even approach, you know, playing guitar and playing the pedal board from a writing, you know, trying to write anything. I just enjoy the hell out of it. So, you know, it's like sometimes I'm just like, I just want to have fun and have no, you know, there's no real like requirements. You're just messing around.
How does the current pandemic situation affect your songwriting, if there's any? Maybe do you spend more time in the studio, or how does it work for you?
Yeah, I mean, I spend a lot more time in the studio just because I don't tour anymore. So, you know, it's like that's definitely, if there's any silver lining, that's it, is that I just get to kind of focus for once. It's been so long since I've been able to completely focus on being in the studio and making music. So yeah, it's been really powerful in that way. And it's just like a nice moment to reflect and kind of think about what's important, just because like for so many years, you're so focused and you're always doing something, you're always moving around. And it's like, I don't think I've ever been home this long and just completely like, you know, in a relaxed, reflective space. So I think it's been good for my songwriting. I think I've been working on an album, and I think it's, you know, I've been working on this album for a while, but I definitely think it's come a long way in the last, you know, 6 months or so since this started.
Yeah, and I noticed that you have a consistent patterns with your releases, and it's do you have a strategy or thoughts behind all your releases all these years?
Yeah, you know, I think that's typically dictated by touring. So like, you know, they call it like a cycle, essentially, like in the industry. It's like, and it's usually like 18 months, because basically, you know, you make a record, and if you're a small, you know, if you're a rock band and you're doing pretty, you know, like you can go record a record in like a month or so and then have somebody mix it in another month and be done with it. But I typically take about a year to make a record. So like maybe Awake was the fastest. I think it took 8 months, and most of the other records take 10 to 12 months. So, you know, typically you're home for that long, and maybe you tour a little bit in between, but then you put that record out and then you tour for, you know, who knows, another year, and then you come back and kind of do it again. So it's like that kind of pace, that cadence just kind of became the norm. So, you know, after a certain amount of time, you start to get this itch and you're like, oh man, I haven't made music in a long time. I got to get back on it. So yeah, it kind of just keeps you going, the touring thing. But this time with all this space and time, it's been cool, because like you can really just sit there and think about the music and there's no pressure. It's just kind of like, what do you want to make? And when it's done and it's right, then I'll put it out.
Is there a specific, any dream project that you wish to execute right now or in the near future? What is a dream project for you? Maybe that's a question.
I mean, honestly, my dream project right now is just going back and making another instrumental Tycho record. You know, it's like, I feel like my whole goal with this last phase, the last few years, was to like experiment and do different things, just because with the trilogy of records, I always think of Dive, Awake, and Epoch as like a kind of like a singular work. It was kind of like a story. And by the end of it, I was just exhausted, and like I needed a break and I needed to do something different for a while. And I did that, and I feel like really refreshed and kind of like, so now I'm like, I really loved where Epoch was headed sonically, and I've just always wanted to revisit that and kind of like pick up where that left off. So I think I've got a ton of songs that are kind of like in that vein, and I'm just really excited about. So I think my dream is to like finish out all the stuff I've got going on right now, which I'm almost done with. Like I've got a lot of collaborations and stuff, which have been really fun. And once those are done, I can sit down and just spend the time and make a new record.
Yeah, man. And the works with the vocals, Hannah Cottrell, right?
Yeah.
Amazing. It just sits on the right frequency. It's the exact same vibe. It just connects with you right away. It's pretty amazing. And I was just wondering, if do you have a different thoughts when you're writing music with vocals or just instrumentals?
Yeah, I mean, that Hannah's amazing. Saint Sinner, she's incredible. And yeah, I agree. The timbre and the texture of her voice. That's why when I first heard her sing, I was like, oh my God, this is like, sounds like it's part of the music. So like it made it really easy. Like it just folded right in with the music. I mean, it definitely affected the way I treated the arrangements, of course, you know, because I had to be a little more minimal with things and strip things away, which I think was a great exercise. And I learned a ton about song structure and kind of frequency, you know, overlapping frequency ranges. I feel like a lot of my career, because it's instrumental music, I got away with a lot of things fighting for space. You know, I almost use that as like an effect. But when it's vocals, you really gotta let those vocals breathe, or else people, you know, it'll sound weird and you won't be able to tell what they're saying. So I think it was a really interesting exercise in that respect. So it you know, it definitely dictated the arrangements and stuff and the instrumentation.
I'm sure Jonas has a question for you. Jonas, Jonas, are you there? There you go.
Yes. I love like tech in 90s. Do you know like Robert Miles?
Robert Miles?
Yeah, the Robert Miles, like the band. I forgot where they were from.
No. Well, what era were they from?
90s.
Oh, okay. No, never heard of them.
Okay, my question is, since we were somewhere in 90s, what was your influence? The band from the similar genre.
Yeah, so I mean, I think Boards of Canada is definitely the biggest influence for me from that era, and yeah, they were the mid 90s, Aphex Twin, all that stuff coming out of Warp at that time, Plaid, Autechre, Photech, and Square Pusher, like a lot of that stuff, that early kind of like, I don't even know what, you know, they called it IDM at the time, which I know people don't really use that term anymore, but that was definitely where I was really focused on drum and bass for the most part. So like Photech and Ronnie Size and LTJ Bookham, but also then a little bit later, like more like 98, 99, I started getting into Warp records and all that stuff.
Oh, cool.
And Jonas was asking me, actually, is there any of your releases that uses Tempus for the reverb?
No, not yet. Wait. Did I use it? No, I think I had already written and recorded all the guitar parts by the time I got it. So yeah, not yet. But the next record, it's like on every song.
it will be everywhere.
Whoa! I'm so excited.
I actually have a song, like one of the most exciting song for me, the song that I'm most excited about on the record, that just kind of like feels like what I was trying to say with it was, I wrote with the harmonious. So I was just doing this call and response thing with the harmonious delay, and like it's this really cool space. And that was you know how like I feel like I'll get a pedal or a piece of gear, and like you know there's something about it that interested you enough to buy it or to seek it out or to learn more about it. But once you get it, you know, it takes a while, and you start messing with it, and you're like, yeah, it's cool, but like for me at least, it takes a while for it to gel. And then when you really know it's like yours and you've made it your own and like it's part of your arsenal, is like once you've written like a really cool idea with it. Yep. And that was like the third day I had it, I think I wrote that song. And it, you know, I always think gear, sometimes cool gear that's really interesting and inspirational kind of writes music for you sometimes. Like the second you play into it, you hear it saying this, you know, kind of telling the story back to you. And like, you just kind of have to follow its lead. And I really love that, you know, that thing that happens when you connect with a piece of equipment. And that definitely happened with that. And that song came out of it. So that'll definitely be on the next record.
It's awesome. We can go on and on. Jonas, you got question.
I know you go ahead.
We can go on and on, but you were constantly on the road, like Australia, Japan, Europe, US. Is there any specific favorite place that you've been to?
We always, you know, Japan is always a highlight. I love the people out there, and I love Tokyo, and just like the whole country is just
Kihabara.
Yeah, but like, I mean, it's hard to say. We've just been to so many cool places, and it's hard to pick favorites. They just all have their own kind of thing. We spent some time in South America once briefly, and I've always wanted to make it back there. That's a beautiful place. But yeah, definitely I think Hong Kong, that was definitely a highlight too. There's so many places. It's like it all blurs together, but you have all these memories of all these beautiful cities. So it's hopefully we get to get back on the road again soon. It's sad being home so much.
And yeah, we have many listeners who are musicians. And do you have any tips for touring musicians, how to keep healthy on the road, or any routines that works for you?
Yeah, I mean, like when I started doing this, I was so nervous, and I would just drink and like stay up late. I basically let the anxiety let the anxiety get to me, and I thought this was one big party. And so, we partied for years, and just like it starts to break down, and by the end of the tour, you're just a mess, and you're unhealthy. So the last 3 or 4 years, I just really made a conscious effort to not drink before shows, and if I ever did, not to drink much, and to right after the show immediately try to make your way to your hotel or your bus or wherever you're staying. Like I try to go immediately to bed and not maybe read or do something to wind down, but not like continue the party. I mean, if you're young, you only live once, and you're a young musician and you get to tour, it's like, of course, take advantage of that because it's fun, and those are fun, some of the most fun I've ever had, but it's not sustainable. So like, I think at some point you have to realize like this is a job, and you have to be a professional. And then the other thing is just keeping physically strong, because, I know a lot of this work is all about interacting with machines and sitting behind computers and, playing instruments. But like, those are all physical activities at the end of the day. Once your body starts breaking down, your back starts hurting, and your knees or whatever from bad posture, like you really have to take care of your body. Cause I'm older now, and I've been doing this for 25 years, and it starts to catch up with you if you don't stay ahead of it. So try to stay healthy.
Yeah, awesome. We can go on and on, but Scott, you are always welcome here in Indonesia. You got this little family right here to take care of you in here.
Awesome.
Have you eaten durian just yet? Do you know this?
Yes. Yeah. I had it in Hawaii, actually. My friend Christopher my friend Christopher Willits, he took me to a friend of his farm, and they had like all these crazy fruits like durian and some other one, jackfruit. I don't know if you guys are familiar with jackfruit. Yep. Just all these things I had never had, and they were crazy. But the durian was good. Yeah, it was interesting, but good.
Wow.
Can you stand the smell? Can you stand it?
No. So yeah, as it got closer to me, I'm like, oh my God. But then he's like, no, but just eat it. And then I was like, oh, that's pretty good. It was cold. Like they had it refrigerated. So it was cold. I don't know if that's how you normally do it.
It works.
Usually here we get from the trees, falling down from the trees. Yeah, that's the best.
You eat it fresh?
Yeah, eat it fresh.
I don't think I've ever had it fresh. Like this, they had refrigerated it overnight, I think. So it was, but it was pretty fresh.
Yeah. And thank you so much, Scott, for taking the time to share your insights with us. And we hope that one day you can come to visit us and play live shows back on the road. And you always have a family in here again. And thanks for supporting GFI System. And we're always going to support you. Simulcast album is out now. Get it everywhere where the music is available. And thank you so much for joining us today, Josh and Scott. Tycho. And thanks a lot for sharing the music with the universe, I guess.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me, and thank you for making amazing instruments, because without you guys, musicians would be pretty bored, I think. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.